Well, welcome to another episode of Christian Answers for today, and I'm happy that you can be along to join us here in this discussion. It is about a week past the Bruce Jenner, Diane Sawyer 2020 ABC News interview, and I've put out a couple programs about that, so I'm not going to go over the whole thing again. It's just that we are still continuing to make commentary on this rather strange interview that took place last week, and we're going to continue to comment on it because a lot of people are continuing to talk about it and comment on it in the culture. And so today we're going to spend a little time talking about some different topics. It's been over a week now, and we've been able to sort of get a feedback on what the public is saying. And I have to say, I'm very disappointed in the American public. I'm very disappointed in the opinion polls that are coming out because it shows that almost 99% of everyone that's saying anything about this is in support of what Bruce Jenner is doing. And if you don't know exactly what he's trying to do, he's trying to transition himself, so it's called, from a man into a woman. And it seems like the overwhelming vast majority of Americans say that's perfectly fine with them, and they're okay with that. They have no problems with that. Of course, Hollywood has no problem with that. In fact, they're the ones that are really beating the drumbeat of support for Bruce Jenner. If you go on any of the internet sites that give entertainment news, it's just one entertainer, one celebrity after another supporting Bruce Jenner and wishing him well and wanting the best and everything for what he's trying to do. And it's really, really amazing because these are the people that are influencing children. These are the people that are influencing the teenagers and the young people. And of course, the teenagers and the young people are following their favorite celebrity's opinion. And so they go on social media and they go on the internet and they see that so-and-so is all in favor of Bruce Jenner becoming a woman. And so they repeat that and they tell their friends that they're all in favor of Bruce Jenner becoming a woman. And so it builds. And so we have a situation now where actually the moral values, the right and wrong values of our nation are being shaped by celebrities and Hollywood and the mass media. And so if you're a member of the celebrity jet set, if you're a member of the class that is on television, if you're a Hollywood actor or actress, if you're a rock star or a musician, well-known entertainer, you are the new moral teachers of society because young people look to you, they tune into you, and they respect your opinion above all else. They respect it above the Bible, they respect it above God, they respect it above the church, they respect it even above their parents. And so we shouldn't be surprised that coming from the opinion polls, 99% of all people polled are saying that Bruce Jenner is doing a great thing. Now, one of the things that people are saying, one of the things the celebrities are saying, I saw a couple of very famous musicians and actresses speaking and saying things like Bruce Jenner is a brave and courageous person. And I was totally dumbfounded by that opinion because if you look at the statistics and demographic and marketing data, ABC News in 2020 and Diane Sawyer knows before they go into an interview what the general consensus of people will be about a topic. Now, they don't know for sure. Of course, they can be totally fooled, but not usually. ABC usually goes through a process of trying to find out how their audience will react to interviews and television programs, and there are entire departments that spend their time trying to figure out the polling data, market research, study groups, and all kinds of things to decide if a program or a show will be popular even before it's even aired. And so they have a pretty good idea what the general public is, or at least they have an idea in the ballpark. Well, so when they scheduled this Bruce Jenner interview, they had already done their research and they had found that there would probably be an overwhelming amount of people who would be in support of what he's doing. And so for people in the celebrity jet set segment of our society, for Hollywood actors and actresses, for musicians to come and say now afterwards, Bruce Jenner is a very courageous and very brave person for doing this. No, actually, he's not a very courageous person, and he's not a very brave person, because he knew, just like ABC already knew, that most people would not have a problem for what he is doing, because that's what the polls indicated. The polls have already indicated that most of our population now does not consider moral absolutes anything that they would subscribe to. They do not believe that the Bible is the absolute truth when it comes to morality and truth. And so why would they then apply an absolute standard for something like what Bruce Jenner is going to do? They wouldn't. And so the opinion polls were already there before this interview, and they could have told anybody who wanted to know that if Bruce Jenner announced that he wanted to be a woman and transition, that he would find a lot of sympathy in society. So how is that being brave when you already know that people are sympathetic to this kind of stuff? We've seen, even just on this so-called gay marriage issue, we've seen a huge shift in the last 2 or 3 years. People are heading in that direction. So why is it brave for what Bruce Jenner did? It's not brave. It's not courageous. Now, he did have to take a risk in the sense that there are people, and I think that he cares about in his friendship circle or even in his family, who might have a problem with what he's doing. And he does care about other people in the Hollywood industry and the Hollywood community there who might have a problem. But Hollywood pretty much already was on board with stuff like this, and so he really didn't take that much of a risk. So when you hear a celebrity say he was a courageous person and Bruce Jenner is brave and he's a hero, no, he's actually not brave. He's not courageous. And what would be brave and courageous were for him to be interviewed and him to say, no, I'm refusing to go through this. I had thoughts about it, but I've backed away because I think that would be in violation of Christian morality and biblical standards. That would be brave. That would be brave. To speak against what he's doing would be brave. In fact, we've seen there was an actress who actually tweeted some kind of a negative reaction for what Bruce Jenner was doing, and she was attacked immediately by the celebrities and the opinion makers in society. And so she had to then go back and say, oh, no, I didn't mean that. I meant this. And so she had to try to backtrack and explain herself. See, that's what happens to people who say anything against what he's saying. So that takes courage, not what he said. That didn't take any courage. It didn't take any bravery. And we shouldn't really believe these celebrities who say that Bruce Jenner is courageous. He's not courageous, and it didn't take all that much to say what he did. Well, we'll be back for part 2 of Christian Answers in just a second. Don't go away. Well, welcome to part 2 of Christian Answers, and we're continuing to talk about this interview on 2020 that occurred over a week ago now with Diane Sawyer and Bruce Jenner. And now Bruce Jenner, during that interview, of course, announced that he was, over the next year or so, going to be transforming himself totally into a woman. He is going to then be interviewed by Diane Sawyer again about a year from now, and he is going to then show the world his new self, which will be a woman, supposedly. And then there were opinions put out by celebrities and influential people and Hollywood executives, entertainers, media personalities, even politicians, that we're all in favor of what he is doing. Now, people, I said the last time in our segment, I said some people were claiming that Bruce Jenner was courageous and courage. He was not courageous and brave. He already had the sympathy of Hollywood, and he already had the sympathy of most people in the society today because of the way the media is all behind what he's doing, and the entertainment world is all behind what he's doing, and all the other segments of society are already on board to this kind of thing we've seen in the last couple of years. So him actually coming in front of cameras and saying what he was going to do, it didn't really take all that much courage. What takes courage is actually to say something against what he's doing, and that's why we don't see hardly anybody saying anything against what he's doing. In fact, I already shared in the first segment, one actress made the mistake of, she didn't even criticize him per se in doing what he's doing, trying to transition into a woman. She actually criticized him for being a man, oddly enough, and says if he was a woman, then he wouldn't even have a camera there and he wouldn't even be able to tell his story. And she was bemoaning the fact that women don't have as many advantages as men do in society, and that was her negative implication. But she got blamed for criticizing him even in that, and it wasn't even a full criticism. It was sort of a sideways criticism, and she got blasted. And so no wonder there aren't people who are saying anything bad about it, because if you say anything bad about it, you get attacked, you get smeared, and your character is crushed by the mass communications means and the celebrities and all the other people that are involved. And so no wonder the 99% of opinion polls are saying that they're in favor of Bruce Jenner, because if you say anything against it, you're going to be attacked. In fact, Bruce Jenner's ex-wife, it says during the interview, Diane Sawyer said they reached out to the 3 ex-wives of Bruce Jenner, and 2 of them said that they fully supported what he was doing. His latest ex-wife, Chris, had no comment. Okay, so she didn't even say anything, but that was taken by people as a criticism, or that she wasn't fully on board with what he was doing, and she got attacked for not jumping in and saying she's fully behind it. And so she had to then respond and then say that she's behind what he's doing, and that she supports him, and la-da-da, you know, all this other stuff. So in other words, you don't even have to criticize Bruce Jenner for trying to transition into a woman. All you have to do is not say that you are 100% behind him, and you will get trashed by the popular culture, and especially the mass media. And so we see then that there are all kinds of problems that develop when you have someone like this going on and acting like in a shameful way like he did, because you're confusing people, especially the children, especially teenagers and young adults. They are hearing all kinds of foolishness, and they're trying to process this, and it's very hard in an environment where even speaking out against it is forbidden. Now, some of the things that are leveled against those who do say something negative about Bruce Jenner's project, we might call it, and what happens is on the comments that come in, and I know we've done 2 or 3 television shows about this issue, and we've gotten some comments, and we've gotten some feedback, and most of the negative comments that do come in want to try to stop the entire critique of what he's doing by labeling anyone who is not 100% behind what he's doing, labeling them as hate mongers, homophobes, not loving, bigots, and all the other names that you've heard. Now, those labels do not carry out a conversation. They do not continue and advance a discussion. All they do is just try to silence a discussion, and that's what people who are criticizing anyone who speaks out against what Bruce Jenner is doing. They want to try to silence them. They don't want to try to talk with them. They don't want to try to understand why a Christian, for example, would oppose someone who is rebelling against their created state. If a man is a man, if he was born a male, God evidently wants him to be a man, and so therefore it would be wrong to try to change from being what God created you into something else. That would be being created. For example, if you were a woman, God would want you to carry out the role of a woman in society and not try to be a man like Chaz Bono has done in the past 2 or 3 years ago, and now what Bruce Jenner is trying to do. And so from a Christian viewpoint, if you go to the Bible, if you go to church teachings, if you go to Christianity, and this is basic Christianity 101, you will find that God wants you to be what he created you. If you're created a man, he wants you to be a man. If you're created a woman, he wants you to be a woman. That's just basic common sense. Now, if you say that, though, in the context of a Bruce Jenner interview, for example, you are criticized because you are not going along with the current thinking. You are called a hate monger, you are called a homophobe, you are called a bigoted, you are unloving, and all these labels are thrown at you in an attempt to try to get you to be quiet. And you know what? They do work. They really, really do work in some cases. In most cases, sadly enough, people simply do not like to hear these labels thrown at them. They don't like to take the abuse, especially if it's piled on over and over again. You could just see what happened to this poor actress who made a negative comment about Bruce Jenner after the interview, and she got attacked. And we're not talking just a few people. We're talking about in the social media world, you can have hundreds and hundreds of attacks from hundreds of different people. Even thousands and thousands of people today through social media can attack you. And so she was unfortunate enough to have to bear the wrath of people who descended upon her because she didn't toe the party line. Well, we as Christians have to stand up, whether we get attacked or not, and say this is wrong. What Bruce Jenner is doing is wrong. He is mutating and mutilating his body. That's wrong. And we as Christians need to step up and say that's wrong. And so whether it makes us popular or not popular, we need to say what needs to be said. Well, don't go away. We're going to be back for part 3 in just a minute. Well, welcome to part 3 of Christian Answers, and we are talking about the Bruce Jenner interview with Diane Sawyer on ABC's 2020, and we're talking about the fallout of what has happened, and we're making note of the fact that most 99% of all of the people who have given their opinions about what Bruce Jenner is doing are favorable. And that's a sad thing. That's a sad commentary on our day and our time. It's a sad commentary that people have thrown off Christian morality and have thrown off the biblical truth and thrown off the values that most people in our Western civilization have held for 2,000 years or even longer. And that's a sad commentary on our population. But that's the reality of where we're facing. And we've seen this for the last 2 or 3 years with the rise of the acceptance of the so-called gay marriage movement. And now we see the latest manifestation of this moving away from Christian morality, away from God, and that is this transgenderism movement that is arising. And now we're seeing that. Now the next wave, I predict, I don't know for sure, I don't have a way of telling the future, but I would predict that the next wave after this would be the bisexual movement, where you would have people wanting to marry members of both sexes, so you'd have at least 3 people in the marriage, even 4, 5, or whatever, and that will then be the next so-called human right. Now, another thing that people have said in the wake of this interview is that they have said that Bruce Jenner has done good things through this interview. He has educated people, he has opened the conversation, and he's actually helping change the world for the better. In fact, that's what he said that he wants to do. Now, it's very odd. Here is a man who the first thing he says out of his mouth when he's interviewed, the first part of the interview, he says he's confused. He's been confused all his life about his sexuality, and he's confused, okay? So here's a confused man, but later on in the interview, he wants to be the transgender champion. He wants to be the hero of the transgender, and he wants to blaze the trail for transgenderism and lead people into knowledge and understanding of this issue, and yet he's confused. So here is a confused man that he wants to lead other people into what he is, I guess, understood. And that just makes no sense. If you're confused, which he is very confused. In fact, he really needs counseling. He needs therapy instead of transitioning and sexual realignment surgery. He needs psychiatric, psychological, and psychoanalytic therapy to help him get his mind right instead of trying to get his body right. His body apparently was born a male, and so it still is a male, and there's nothing wrong with it. He's got no physical problems, so it's his mind that needs to get put right, and he needs therapy. He doesn't need surgery. But anyway, he wants to be the so-called trailblazer for transgenderism. He wants to lead people into a better understanding, and he says he wants to change the world. Now, this is so ironic. Here's a confused man who wants to educate others. He wants to teach us about a subject and about a situation in which he already admits he's confused. I don't think that's a good teacher. I don't think that's a good person to be instructing other people, because he himself is confused and he needs help rather than trying to be the one who offers the help. He needs to get help, and he needs to do it in a quiet way. He needs to do it outside of the limelight, and he needs to work this out himself, because he is confusing people in the process, and he's confusing an entire society, actually, because we're seeing that people are following along in this confusion as if it were clarity, and it's not. It's not clarity, it's confusion. So, but the thing is, people, the celebrities in the Hollywood scene and the mass media personalities, the news people, are all on board with this, and they're all making comments to the effect, they're saying something like, well, he's really done a great thing for the consciousness of our nation. He's done a great thing for educating people, and he's helping remove the misconceptions about this issue, and he's really done a fantastic job of getting people educated on this issue. Well, he's not done a great job in getting people educated on this issue, because he's teaching people the wrong thing. He's actually teaching people that this is a viable option. He's teaching people that there's nothing wrong with this. He's teaching people that this should be totally accepted and welcomed and even celebrated. And that is the total opposite of the case. Transgenderism, sexual reassignment surgery, and the whole process of what he's talking about should be discouraged in society. We should not be teaching young people that this is an option. We see the tragedy that happens during the teenage years. Children and teenage people are already confused about a whole plethora of things. They don't need now a category that says, well, you know, maybe I'm not male or female, maybe I need to switch my genders or switch my sexuality, or maybe I need to have surgery, maybe I need to... In fact, we saw a teenager recently, this year, commit suicide. And why did this teenager commit suicide? Because the teen's parents would not pay for sexual realignment surgery, would not help this teen transition, so-called transition, into the opposite sex. And so this teen got so mad and frustrated that the teenager committed suicide. Now that death is used as propaganda by transgenders and the gay activists as a reason why we as Americans need to promote this instead of discourage it. I think it should be a reason for discouraging this kind of thinking. And I think Bruce Jenner, who wants to be a hero and a champion and a voice for the transgender community, I think he's doing a disservice to Americans because he's sowing seeds of confusion. He is confusing young people, he's confusing teenagers, he's confusing young adults, and sadly he's confusing adults and even senior citizens because they think in terms of feelings and emotions and sentimentalism instead of clear thinking reason. If you sit down and you reason this out, you will conclude that it is a bad idea for any society to begin to tell its people that possibly, maybe, they need to have sex change operations and they need to change their body to fit their confused mind, rather than saying to people, you need to work on your mind to get your mind healthy. You need to have a healthy and whole thinking and mental state, and that will be the solution, not this gender reassignment surgery, sexual reassignment surgery, not this perverted deforming of the body to try to make it conform to some confused mental state. No, that's harmful. And so when the celebrities and these media personalities say Bruce Jenner did a great thing in speaking of this and bringing it to consciousness and promoting it, they're actually lying. This is not a great thing. This is a bad thing. And I would encourage every one of you to discourage it as much as you can. Talk to people, talk negatively about it, speak out against it, and maybe, just maybe, our small voice will be heard and people will come back to their senses and begin to live their lives the way God created them in the first place. Well, I hope that this has helped, and I hope that you will join us again next week on another edition of Christian Answers.